Ally, did you say Kristen was also going to be attending?
She just emailed me she's out sick today, so we will be missing her.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we get going? I think this is, as far as we know, right? So far, this is everybody that we think is going to be coming, Ally, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It seems to be a cloudy day out here today in Albany. Not sure how it is where everybody is all over the place, but oops. Hi Candy, how are you? So I think this is our third meeting via video conference, which it has had some real benefits along the lines of being able to have so many people from all over the state come on board and join us at this meeting. So I'm really happy about that. I think the first thing I'd like to do is go around the room, the virtual room, and ask everybody to introduce themselves. We have a new member from NYPD, Kenneth Perez. Thank you for joining us very much, sir. And I think it'd be good if we could go around and make sure that everybody introduces themselves and say where you're from and just like a smidge about you. So I will start, and I'll call out to you just because these meetings get so funky, I think sometimes when people try to just chime in. I think if it's helpful, I'll call out to everybody, except there's somebody on the phone that I can't identify who's on that phone number. So we'll call out the phone number and then hopefully the person will join in. So I'm Johanna Sullivan. I'm the director of the Office of Public Safety here at DCJS, and we are the staff arm of the Triad Committee, which is the New York State Committee for the Coordination of Police Services to the Elderly. And we work together with our various members here to try to come up with different collaborative ways in which we can help support police in responding to elder abuse via training, offerings, any types of resources we can provide. So that's who I am. And I think if I can, I'll turn it over to Greg. Oops, I think you're still on mute, Greg.
Greg's muted. I'll unmute him. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Good to be here. It's good to see all of you. Greg Olson, I'm the director of the New York State Office for Aging. One of the things in our portfolio through Older Americans Act and state statute is identification and mitigation of elder abuse, financial exploitation. We also oversee and administer in partnership with other organizations, the enhanced multidisciplinary teams across New York State.
Thanks, Greg. On my screen, I see Candy next.
Hi, Candy Vogel, Erie County District Attorney's Office. I'm Chief of the Special Investigations and Prosecutions Unit. Our interplay is primarily financial exploitation of the elderly.
Excellent, thank you. Gary?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Gary Brown. I'm from the New York Attorney General's Office, where I'm the statewide elder abuse coordinator. Good morning.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, I'm going around my screen. Julie?
Good morning. Can you see me and hear me?
We can.
We can.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Julie DeLeon, Bronx District Attorney's Office. Good morning.
Good morning. And there's somebody on the phone this morning? It's just a phone call?
Kirsten Conley with DCJS PIO Office, Public Information.
Oh. Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Dave? Hi, Dave. Can you introduce yourself?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No worries. Technology is great.
I'm working on getting the video and the audio because I call in even though I'm on the screen. But Dave Stazak from the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, and I will work to get my technological challenges remedied.
Don't worry, don't stress out about it. We all have technology issues with these days with things. So thanks very much for joining us. I appreciate it. And the next I have up is Jennifer.
Hey, good morning. This is Jennifer Rosenbaum from the State Office for the Aging. I'm an assistant director in the Division of Policy Planning, Program and Outcomes, and I work with Greg.
Excellent. Kathy?
Good morning, everyone. Kathy Davidson from the Office of Victim Services, Crime Victims Specialist 3. And a large part of my job is overseeing claims that come in for elderly victims of crime.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Kelly?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kelly Matija. I'm with the communications team at NYSOFA with Greg and Jennifer.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Shelley?
Good morning. I'm Shelley Febick. I am the director of the Bureau of Adult Services here at the Office of Children and Family Services, and our role on this committee is the oversight and monitoring that we have for adult protective services in New York State.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Kenneth Perez, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm used to saying good morning, Bronx. Good morning, Queens. Looks like I have to say good morning, New York State. Yes, my name is Deputy Inspector Kenneth Perez. I'm the commanding officer of the Community Affairs Bureau within the NYPD. I've replaced Deputy Inspector Corey, who has moved on to a very prominent role as the commanding officer of the Hate Crimes Unit in the NYPD. So she spoke highly of all of you, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone and working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, she certainly had a lot to participate and provided a lot of insight and help for us. So we're looking forward to continuing that relationship on with you. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So for our agenda today, a couple things. We actually are going to be able to vote, everybody, which is so exciting. So for those of you that remember at our last meeting, we made two motions and changed our bylaws to change our quorum requirements to make it be a majority of the people that are on that are present at the meeting to be able to vote, which it was not before, which also often caused us some challenges. So between that change and the change to the video conference voting and allowing us to vote via video conference, that we're going to be able to vote. I jumped ahead, last but not least, certainly because they're the most important people here. I want to make sure that my staff and our legal services gets to introduce themselves. Allie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie. I think I've spoken to almost all of you. I'm the coordinator of the Triad Committee. I've been working in Johanna's office at DCJS for about 7 years, and I've been the coordinator for about 5. At DCJS, I'm in the Law Enforcement Training Unit, so that's why we are the staff arm for this committee.
Thanks,
Thank you all for
Allie.
being here.
Molly?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Molly Bates. I'm a program manager in our law enforcement training unit. So along with assisting Allie with training projects related to this committee, we also work on training programs and the basic course for police officers for municipal agencies around the state.
Thanks, Ma. Josh?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Josh Feinhout. I work also with Johanna, Allison, and Molly in the Office of Public Safety. I oversee the Law Enforcement Training Unit, among other things, and definitely happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have from our Office of Legal Services, Lisa Marie Coppola. Lisa?
Good morning. I'm sorry. Yeah, my name is Lisa Marie Coppolo. It's not DCJS Coppolo, but that seems to be what WebEx wants me to be today. And I'm one of the attorneys in legal services.
Thank you. And Lisa, make sure that we do things the right way here. So, and make sure we follow all of our rules and bylaws. So she helps us out with all of that. So thanks, everybody. Okay, so, basically, what I was starting to say is that we have a quorum and for the purposes of voting on our meeting minutes. And we changed, for those of you that may remember, I think we were often meeting June and December and we were having quorum issues. So we tried to change our time to this time frame, to the April time, to see if we could do better on attendance, which it seems like we do have a lot more people attending. So we are going to be able to vote due to our attendance and due to the new bylaws that we voted on. So everybody got a copy of the December 11th meeting minutes from our last meeting on December 11th. Is that correct? Okay. So I'm going to have to do a roll call because of how we have to vote on this. And since, as I said, we have enough, it will be the majority of the people that are present today that can vote. And I think we have one agency, NYSOFA, that has a couple representatives, but Greg, I'm just going to turn to you for the voting for NYSOFA, if that's okay with you.
That is, we came into 2021 packing this with nice sofa staff.
All right. We like to see you here. So, okay. So I'm going to ask if we can, do we have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes for the December 11th, 2020 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, so then I'm going to call each one of you out if you can say what your vote is on whether or not we want to adopt the meeting minutes from December 11th. Greg Olson?
Yes.
Gary Brown?
Yes.
Candy Vogel?
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Inspector Perez?
Yes.
Okay. Kathy Davidson?
Yes.
David Stezek? David, if I
Yes.
mispronounce that, please correct me. I know I tried to get it right, but did I mispronounce that, David?
Stazak, it's close.
Stazak. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And yes.
Thank you. Okay. Kathy Davidson?
Yes.
And Shelley Fibe? Shelley, please correct me if I'm getting this wrong again, please.
It's
Fibich?
Feebick and yes.
Feebick. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So the motion carries and the December 11th meeting minutes have been adopted. Yay, big progress for us to get to that point. And now we can move on with our business. So we talked about a variety of different things at our last meeting and a variety of different ideas and initiatives. And I just want to thank those of you that sent information into us for this meeting, for the toolkit. Last meeting, we talked a little bit about the toolkit that this team had developed, and there was a variety of different resources that some of the different team members thought that they could bring to the table that were in fact included. So I know we got information from NYPD, from Deputy Inspector Corey, that we included and updated in the resource toolkit. So that was great. We got it from a couple, I think Gary, you had sent some things over. And so we've updated the toolkit to reflect the additional resources that were identified at the last December 11th meeting. So, and we sent that out along with my memo reminding all of law enforcement about the EMDTs. And so hopefully, I think that went out, the toolkit was finalized and it went out the end of last week. So hopefully we will see more referrals coming in from various law enforcement around the state to them. And I just want to thank everybody again who's done all the work on that. That's going to be a huge initiative and a huge resource for law enforcement. So that's that was done. And we also sent around at the last meeting, I believe Greg had let us know about the curriculum, the court guide for the elder justice guide that was being done by the Office of Court Administration. And we sent that around to the committee so that everybody could know what was being done and what was being put out there by the court system. So those are some of the things that were on our follow-up list. And we also talked at the last meeting, which we'll talk a little bit further today about the possibility of doing a webinar. And I know staff had talked about the scams, and we spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about the scams that some of the elderly are experiencing, especially in light of COVID. I know Deputy Inspector Corey had talked about that. Gary, I know you had talked about a variety of different scams in light of COVID that people were experiencing. And we had talked about the possibility of doing a webinar. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about whether or not the committee is interested in doing that. And so those were some of our takeaways from the meeting, the last meeting that we had, and just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And now I'm going to turn it over to our staff. Molly, are you going to take this, or is Allie?
I can do it.
Okay.
Up to you, Ma. So we just wanted to give a quick reminder. I think most of you know that your 2-year terms on this committee come to a close in June. So as we do for every term renewal, we sent out request nomination letters to your subsequent agencies, asking either for you as members to be renominated or for new nominations. And I believe all of you at the meeting have been renominated. So in case none of you were aware, your new committee terms will begin in June, and that will be for an additional 2 years. So June 2021 to 2023. And then we will have our next meeting. I'll send out more information, but the meeting after that is in September. So that's just a reminder for everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Allie. Does anybody have any questions about your terms or what's involved with that? Okay. Fortunately, this is a commissioner appointment meeting, so membership. So it goes pretty quickly for those of you that are familiar with the distinctions in state, getting on state councils and membership. Sometimes they can take a little while, but we're fortunate. This one is just our commissioner appoints all of you after you're nominated. And at any point, Allie, you can correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong. But the benefit of that is, we don't have to go through as some of the more formal processes that sometimes happen in some of our other councils that we run and oversee, which can take a little bit of time for membership to stay up to date. So fortunately for us, the membership gets to stay pretty much up to date, and we get to stay on top of it because Allie's on top of it and reminding us all of that. So that works out well for us. Okay, Mal, can I turn it over to you to sort of kick off the conversation regarding following up on the webinar and getting ideas from the committee members and thinking what they would like to talk about with that?
Sure. So at the last meeting, we talked about the option of doing a webinar on scams or financial exploitation, or a host of different ideas that committee members shared. So that's something we can look into further. Possibly DCJS has done a few webinars where we've had a panel of folks present at DCJS, obviously spread out, but we, with our media team, we were able to do a webinar where, we have different speakers speaking and presenting on, on different things that they've worked on. And this was in relation to procedural justice, but we could do something similar with regard to either crimes against the elderly or scams or, whatever option the panel would like to do. So that's one training opportunity or idea that we were floating around. And then the other is getting back into the classroom and doing, in-person training, which DCJS has started to resume, late last year and now this year with, certain safety protocol in place. You might remember that we did work in conjunction with Lifespan with Art and when he was still there, and obviously Art has since retired. But we have kept our relationship with Lifespan, and I believe they have new financial investigative folks there, retired law enforcement, and I think they would certainly be willing to go out and do some more classroom training for us this year. So those are just a couple options that, you know, we're throwing out there that folks can, you know, obviously we're interested in your ideas as well, just to see what, you know, what this committee, you know, how this committee would like to proceed this year with, you know, training law enforcement.
So I have a
Thanks,
question.
Molly.
I think any.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can hear me. I just have a question. I'll ask Kelly to weigh in. I think any way that we can continue the educational front is a good one. Obviously, we're all concerned about the you know, financial exploitation, the magnitude of scams. I mean, still 70% are link and telephone oriented, but also, you know, the identification of elder abuse given the isolation that people have been, you know, under since COVID. So I guess my question would be, for your community, what we did at NYSOFA is we started a bi-weekly Facebook live series of educational forums, and we've done many things on elder abuse scams, et cetera. And it reaches, you know, 5,000 to 8,000 people. So I guess my question on your side of the street, is a webinar going to be viewed, or is there another mechanism like a Facebook Live or something else where we're going to get, you know, a better response rate in terms of those who would actually view whatever it is we develop?
So
I think that's an interesting, oh, go ahead, Ma.
Okay, so we just have a couple different options. We can certainly do a live webinar and record it, and we can send out the link afterwards so people who missed it the first time can watch it more at their convenience. That seems to be the practice we've been doing with other webinars, and we've gotten tremendous numbers with those. So that's an option. And we can also take the recorded webinar and place it into our, we have online training software that we utilize as well. So we could do that and then make that available to anyone in law enforcement to make it more of an on-demand training so they can, you know, watch it when it's convenient for them. And we get, you know, our online training numbers are roughly, you know, 1,000 a month, and our online, you know, most of our online trainings have been around for a little bit now. So to still get 1,000 folks, you know, participating in them monthly is pretty good for us.
And Greg,
Okay,
if I can I just chime in on that? I think we have to think about our thinking, obviously, because of the focus of this committee, it would be to educate law enforcement. I mean, that's what we'd be thinking, obviously would hear from others. So for our audience as to who's going to chime in and who's going to listen to it, as Molly indicated, we've had some of our webinars with 800 people on when it's live, and then, but again, we're targeting law enforcement, you know, and awareness with law enforcement about whatever the various issues are. Then we record it, as Molly indicated, and people can do it later. So, I mean, our thinking, just so we're kind of on the same page, which I'll probably make sure, is that it would be to educate law enforcement about this. Now, if there's a different avenue, because I understand what you're saying, I think, Greg, is that the Facebook Live has been a way for you to reach elderly community or advocates for the elderly. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I just was curious of the response rate. So if you have that, you know, high level of viewership, I'm certainly not trying to direct us one way. So that was a question. My only comment would be is we still have quite a few counties that have engaged law enforcement to do wellness checks on older people during COVID who are isolated. And so, you know, it's great to focus on scams and financial exploitation, but, you know, just continuing around the basic signs and symptoms of abuse for those law enforcement officers that are still doing wellness checks, you know, I think is important to include.
Yep. No, that's a great point. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else want to chime in on avenues, resources, thoughts on this? I know at one point Lifespan was hoping to try to participate, and they had some webinars that they were doing, but I think that they were more done in live. They don't have them recorded, but we could also talk with them, obviously, about their potential interest in participating. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on webinar versus whatever other resources you have, topics you think we need to cover if we're going to do something like this? concerns? Yep.
Hi, Joanna, it's Gary. I just wanted to say
Yeah.
that I like the webinar concept a lot because my experience has been similar to yours, that we're getting larger audiences now virtually than we ever did in person. And then if you can record it and make it available afterwards, you're really touching all the bases. So I think that's a great approach.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree. Also, if you need any help getting Lifespan, let me know. We can make it so in a very nice way. We have a great relationship with them, obviously, that it won't be optional. So let me know what you need.
That would be great. I think our thinking would be that we would try to pull on, obviously, this committee and the expertise of this committee to try to raise awareness. Now, you know, it's
Joanna,
only yes.
It's Shelley. Just one quick question. Have we
Sure.
ever taken kind of a poll or just the temperature of what law enforcement might want to hear about? Do we have an avenue to do that?
We have. It's been quite a while since we did a survey on this. Molly, when was, I shouldn't ask you this because I know it's asking you like to put a date, but I know it was a few years ago that we did a survey of law enforcement to find out what areas that they would like to learn about. Is that 5 years ago, Molly? 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's probably been 5 or 6 years since we've surveyed them. It's probably been that long that we worked with OCFS to put together an APS and law enforcement online training. So that kind of gives an overview of what the APS community can do and what the law enforcement community can do and how they can work together. So we've had, I want to say close to 1,000 people complete that training over the years, which is very good. But based on our survey results, it was a lot of the focus was on financial exploitation or financial crimes, because that's I think just what law enforcement needs assistance with. With the the signs of abuse, I think a lot of them are familiar and know what to do and handle that in many situations. I'm not saying all, but it seems the financial crimes are where the biggest need is for training.
Joanna, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Have we broken down as to how Western New York has been responding to the webinars? I mean, do we know by sections what different law enforcement agencies have been looking for and asked?
It's been very broad. I can try to look into that, Candy. I just know the volume. Like when I say the 800, that was one particular webinar that's people chimed in, and I know they're from all over the state, but I haven't looked at it regionally. Do you have concerns that maybe out in Western New York people aren't utilizing it as much, or that another avenue would be better?
No, I like the avenue. The problem is I'm just wondering about notification. Now, we work, obviously, here in Buffalo, we work a lot with Lifespan, but I'm not exactly sure what our contact has been with law enforcement to make them aware of all the information.
Yeah, and I can let you know that. So Molly and Josh's staff oversees, well, I shouldn't even do it. Molly, can you explain DCJS Connect? Because I'm just going to butcher it. If you can explain how we communicate with law enforcement about all of our training options.
Yeah, so we have a couple different avenues. The primary one is called DCJS Contact, and that is a web-based application that anyone in law enforcement, so not necessarily just the police, but probation, parole, anyone in law enforcement can register just with their email address and a couple other, minor information and receive our training announcements. So any of our training announcements that we send out goes out over DCJS Contact. Right now, we have over 9,000 folks registered to receive our emails. So the vast majority of our training announcements go out to everyone. Some are more targeted audiences, so we can break that down by their discipline, whether it's police, probation, prosecution, seeing who we want to reach. So that's our primary avenue of getting our training announcements out. And periodically, I do get requests from Lifespan to send out their, training announcements on their behalf, which we do, routinely, we do it for other agencies as well, but Lifespan does reach out and says, hey, can you help us advertise? And we're glad to do it, and we send it out that way. And then any DCJS hosted trainings, we do put on our training calendar that's available on our website. So those are the two major ways that we get our training announcements out. And then we do have a list that we use, for police executives, but our training announcements don't generally go out to police executives only, just because we know that their inboxes are full and we don't want to bombard them with, with all the training announcements that we do.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that's what how we've been getting it out there and how we've been getting people to log on and to sign on. So, so are there other areas? It's interesting when you're doing a webinar, at least as we've been doing more and more of these, like many of you probably have, it's hard because it's only an hour. So trying to figure out how to cover topics, and making, for the topic, just enough to raise awareness on it, and then providing, say, maybe other resources or letting them know about another training that we're offering has been something that we've been figuring out and working through. I don't know if anybody else who's been doing them has come up with the same thing. When you have somebody on a screen, we really only have an hour to do it. Typically an hour, maybe an hour and a half for a webinar. I mean, we have done more like all-day conference types things also in a webinar or online fashion. But I know, as Molly indicated, we do have the APS online for those of you that maybe are different times. We do have the online training. We do have the resource toolkit. And so these are things that we could, if we did a webinar, we could refer people to also and provide them as resources for broader issues. You know what I'm saying? So that the panelists can talk about a particular area, but highlight maybe signs and symptoms and point them towards other resources, or whichever way we think makes the most sense. I'm just saying we don't have to cover it all in the hour webinar, because typically that doesn't always, at least from what we've seen, it's a little hard to get a ton of stuff into that hour where people can digest it. Does anybody have other thoughts, ideas on what we had? As we said, Shelley, we had, based upon that financial abuse survey saying that there was a lot of interest in financial abuse, and we still sort of hear that. And I know also with the EMDTs being, with those being offered recently and being available now in every county, I think that was where we were talking about it last time, was the fact that every county has one of them now, and wanting to maybe raise awareness and point people towards them as an additional resource, raise awareness about the financial abuses that are going on and point them toward it. That's what's my memory of the conversation. Does anybody want to chime in on whether or not we still think that that's a direction that we should try to go in?
I do think it's a good direction. I've served on the Westchester MDT now for, I think it's about 10 years. And we do occasionally get referrals from police departments, but we probably should be getting more. So to the extent we could make police aware of us, I think that would be productive.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd love to hear Jennifer weigh in. She also reminded me that there are monthly financial exploitation trainings that are coming out of this project that I think, if they've been recorded already, we can develop a library of some of those existing trainings. But Jennifer, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I just wanted to note that there is access to elder abuse EMDT case consultation statewide. There are all of the regions have been set up. There aren't yet teams in every county. It's in about 50 now, so we're still working on a few. So just wanted to make note of that, but agree that it's a really good approach. A lot of case coordination does happen through that mechanism, and it's become a really great venue for the networking that takes place relative to complex cases. It's not limited to financial exploitation. It's any form of elder abuse, and it seems like it's worth a discussion for how that might provide utility.
Mm-hmm. And this is Shelley. I think really, and this might be extremely fundamental, But, you know, saying when you find yourself in a particular situation, you can make a referral here. This is the agency, you know, this agency you would go to for these reasons. This agency handles this, right? And if you're not sure, you can make a referral to an EMDT. I think having that resource, kind of like a panel, and then providing that, you know, I don't know what the toolkit looks like right now. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I think that might be helpful to be able to kind of tell people what paths they could take, or the various paths that they could take if they find themselves, you know, in a situation where they're not quite sure what the next step might be.
Okay. Yep.
Joanna, Candy, I like the referrals, obviously, to the EMDT, but I am still seeing what we saw 15 and 20 years ago is the officer who first responds saying, oh, there's a power of attorney that's civil, or just not recognizing cases. And as advanced as we may be in this area now, there's still the basic knowledge that has to make it onto the street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I know, like you said, I think it's been going on, the conversation's been going on a long time. It seems like it's a civil matter when the police sometimes respond. They're not aware, you know, don't necessarily know what steps to take. So hopefully we could raise awareness just about the basics of how to identify it, what are you looking for, and then where to make referrals for just line officers. As Molly said, we've got about 9,000 on that, and they're all ranks that are on that announcement, and all ranks participate. So hopefully it would be a good, you know, avenue to do something like that. So I hear you, Candy, on the 101, you know, power of attorney does not resolve everything, and how to sort of identify more, or when to call. I mean, look, we you know, we have basic course line officers responding to calls. They're not necessarily all going to have the investigative skills necessary to deal with something like this, but what's a red flag indicator that they should then bring in an investigator or detective or somebody else to help them with the next level, or other APS resources? You know, I think that we can't expect the line officer to have a full understanding of all scams and things like that, because it's just, there's so much that they respond to. But just raising awareness as to when they should get to the next step, I think is something we could hopefully work together on. Okay.
Could I jump
All
in
right.
for a second?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So just coming off the street and having run 3 different commands and just seeing what the cops do on a day-to-day basis. If we were going to have a webinar, what would work for the NYPD would be something that's extremely focused. So if you're going to have a 1-hour training session about scams, I would try to make it as in-depth as possible. What are the first signs that they should be looking for? You know, we try to find these, you know, we notice clusters coming in, like scams in a certain area. So are they mailbox phishing and finding, you know, what the pedigrees are, the people in the neighborhood. We could use help from the DA's office on what, you know, is there any evidence on scene that they should be looking for? You know, in the training, what are the next steps? What are the resources that you give to them? What's the next, you know, what's the next notification? Is a detective squad going to follow up on it? And also, what would be like the push out on our training to the cops? And also, do we do like a huge social media push to let everyone know what the scams are that are going around? So if we were going to do some type of training via webinar, I would say that we should try to stick to one topic and make it as complete as possible.
Thanks for sharing that. On your social media idea, Greg, I was just thinking about what you had said, and I know we've talked about this before, that you're doing various awareness things. I know, I don't know if this committee, June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and I didn't know if we wanted to maybe work together in that month to share information. Greg, like you said, you have some social media stuff that you're working on. We have our own social media, you know, that we reach out to different people in different areas. I assume many of you do too. I wonder if we could, you know, maybe try to partner together to get some information out jumping on what the deputy inspector said, at that time, raising awareness, pushing things out at that time, just trying to think about a focused way to sort of utilize our resources and what people might think about that idea.
I think that's low-hanging fruit. That's pretty easy to do. We would be happy, through Kelly to, work with you guys. I think if we could package something, we have one staff that's been putting together some really nice, very short video clips with information and resources in it that, are actually quite well done. We'd be happy to share a couple samples like that. But I think if we had something that we all worked on together that we could package together and then get out through our various channels, that's pretty simple to do with far reach, given all of our, different organizations and social media reach.
Yep, I agree with you. And I mean, it's great that you guys have already developed some tools and resources. And I know our PIO, who handles all of our social media stuff, would be happy to, utilize our resources in that area. Would that be something that others would be interested or willing to try to work with I'm not sure who runs your social media, but be able to work together on sending information out through your social media pieces?
Yeah, I can run that up the flagpole at the AG's office, sure.
Sure.
Okay.
And OCFS just started our planning for WEAD, which is June 15th. So we were looking to kind of do some facts and some tips on, elder abuse awareness as well. So we can certainly work in whatever the committee develops into that as well.
Well, and to some degree, instead of reinventing the wheel here, Shelley, I'm hearing what you've already you're developing, what Greg's developing. If you can share those things with Allie, and if anybody else has sort of something that would make sense for this venue in a social media venue, if you can share it, and then we can maybe work together to utilize or republicize the information.
Sure.
Since you both have the area of expertise, not trying to, but if you've already got it, I think it makes sense for us to try to utilize our resources as a team to get it out to as many people as possible. I think that might be a good use of our combined efforts.
Joanna, what
Yeah,
type
and I
of
think-
content are you talking about? Because the district attorney, we have a Twitter account, we have Facebook account, and an Instagram account, and our community affairs unit is very active on all those platforms. What type of content are you talking about? Because if it's shared with me, I could definitely give it to the unit and have them put it up on all those platforms.
I think I'd like to see, but what I'm hearing both Greg and Shelley say is they have more like awareness 101 type of pieces that's geared towards it. Both of them are geared towards more the public, if I'm hearing both of you correctly, to raise awareness about what these issues are. Am I getting that right, Greg and Shelley?
Yeah, I think I go back to Shelley and Candy's point. Let's try not to overthink this and get some basic information out. So, at least the way that I think about things, there's two things. Is the identification, what to look for types of things, both on the elder abuse side, the financial exploitation and potential scams, and then what you do if you think you or somebody are a victim. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. Two things. How to self-identify, or have, if a loved one identifies a couple of these signs and symptoms in those categories, and then what do you do? Where do you go?
Right. We've done this with something similar. Another thing that's run out of our office is the Human Trafficking Task Force, and we've done something like that where all of the members of the Interagency Task Force for Human Trafficking, which is a similar body of multidisciplinary people that are on it, have worked together during January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness, to raise awareness, and everybody put it on all of their platforms during that month to raise awareness and say, here are some of the signs and symptoms, here's where you can get help. It's just like you can really maximize your scope and your reach when we all partner together to get it out there. So if you guys, would that, I should go back, Julie, does that answer your question regarding what we're thinking of?
Yes. And I was thinking with a view towards June, and how you just said that it would be the optimal time to raise awareness. We could definitely take whatever content the committee provides one another, and we can put it up on our platforms.
Okay, great.
So So this is Kelly from NYSOFA. Just a suggestion in terms of like a hard next step is that maybe the communication folks that would be involved in this effort could coordinate like a Microsoft Teams or a SharePoint so that we can collaborate on content and have it in one place that we can pull it from and then post from there.
That's a great idea, and I will reach out to our PIO. If everybody could, I assume, I don't know how each of your individual offices work on these. Our communications team or our PIO is the one who oversees that. Is that, I was thinking that, to piggyback on what Kelly just said, would that be who would need to participate from each of your agencies to do this, or would you just be able to give it to them and say, can you do this? Can you, share this information?
I would give it to our community affairs and our press office and have them shared on the platforms.
Okay.
Same here.
Kelly, can you share a couple of the short videos that Alex has made in the last couple of weeks, just as a sample of kind of what I was talking about?
Absolutely. I'll drop those in the chat.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. And then we can send it around afterwards too. And Shelley, if you can share what you were talking about, I think that would be helpful also.
Sure thing.
Okay, great. All right. From the idea of the webinar, I'm thinking we would like to try to tap on a few of you. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot right now, but when we do something like that, we obviously want to have experts in the field. So if there are a few of you that would be willing to participate in a webinar, I think we could do a separate group to talk in more detail about it, and we can share, broadly the concepts with this group. But I think when we've done these webinars, obviously we usually have 2 panelists, something like that, who we bring together a couple different times to talk about it, develop PowerPoint, develop whatever tools and resources we'll be providing. I know there are a few people who on this panel or committee who have a lot of expertise in some of this financial and some of the resources. So if you'd be willing to participate, if you would let us know either now or later, and then we can coordinate, the next steps. I know we have a few people, but I don't want to call anybody that I would think would be great resources, but I don't want to call anybody out on and make them.
Well, I'd be glad to participate on the scams and fraud side.
That's good, Gary, because you were who I was thinking of. I mean, you certainly always come to this committee with a wealth of information on that, and I think that would be really helpful to share that. And I know we want to talk a little bit about the EMDT, so I don't know who would be the best person, whether it's somebody from NYSOFA or somebody from OCFS. Either one of those, if you guys can think about it and see if you have the ability to lend someone to participate, that would be helpful to us.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. It would either be Jennifer or Eric, and I'll leave it up to Jennifer to let you guys know who that would be.
Okay. So we can coordinate with those of you, and then have like a separate meeting on that and talk about timing for your schedules and things like that. And what we want to do, and then we'll work with the larger team to make sure we have enough resources, to connect up to offer people to address the issues on that. So I think those are all good things and good steps forward. Molly, I know the other thing that you talked about was some of the in-person, which we had done a few financial trainings. My memory was our first was we had a basic for officers piece, and then a more in-depth for investigators in person that we had done with Lifespan before. I think we had some scheduled, I think just before COVID hit last year, if I'm remembering that correctly. So, and those would be the ones we would try to see, obviously safety protocols in place if we could move the next steps.
Yep, the only thing that, based on our evaluations and feedback from attendees is, we had it set up where the morning was more of an overview of elder abuse, basics for line officers, and then the afternoon was more investigative for, detectives and investigators. I think moving forward, we would just combine them all into one training. So instead of having like 2 3-hour blocks of training and separate registrations, and I think we would just sort of combine some of the material and just have it open for anybody. Just that was the feedback we got from our evaluations, that, you know, really we didn't need to separate it like we did. So we just minor just like that, but the content I think would pretty much be the same. Obviously, they, you know, lifespan would update as they saw fit, and that's fine.
Thanks, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hopefully we'll see. We're starting, I feel like the world is starting to become a little bit more normal, so we'll get to do some more of those in person. That gets to the next level where you can only cover so much in a webinar. Hopefully we get to do some more of those in this upcoming year. Okay, so and Greg, maybe we can talk offline a little bit about having Lifespan participate in some fashion. I think that might be helpful if we can, in some fashion, have them assist. I know they have their own training and more involved, but maybe we can think about what their role might be able to be in this.
Sure, I'm sure they'd be thrilled to participate.
Okay. So, so before I close this out, is there anything else on these ideas, the social media idea, the webinar idea, or in-person training ideas that anybody wants to chime in on? Okay. So the next agenda item we have is the committee report out idea. So I want to go around and see if I guess I'll first open it up and then we can go around. Does anybody have a committee report out that you want to convey to the rest of the group, information that you're going to be doing, offering, anything that you think the rest of the group would benefit from learning?
And if I can, there's something that I learned during this pandemic COVID thing that somehow or another I think should be worked into what we are dealing with here. And one of the biggest problems I found was that the elderly population really can't handle a lot of the internet communication. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, many spend their lives on the internet, but there are others that either don't have the equipment, they are falling for scams because they don't really understand what they're clicking on, or they really don't have an understanding as to how to use the internet, and they'll call up about an unemployment, letter that they received and such. You tell them to go online and they'll say, I don't know how to do that. And I have been trying to think of some way that law enforcement might be able, when responding to these situations, have something to hook them up to, whether we are talking about using our community service organizations that we're also trying to get into to help these people. And I throw it out there that I just think it's an area of something that should be looked into as to how to educate the elderly population and help them to be more tech savvy, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Greg, I'm gonna.
Well, yeah, I mean,
thanks.
you're absolutely right, and there's no short-term solution. So we have a variety of older adults, in their 80s that we serve that are never going to be connected for one reason or another. I mean, we still have huge pockets of the state that don't have internet access or speeds fast enough to access. There are economic issues on affordability of equipment. MiFi, I know the budget just passed to at least allow the $15 for broadband. We do a lot of training both within our network and with vendors that we pay to train people, whether it be a caregiver or an older adult directly, on how to use some of the equipment. But this is going to be there's no quick solution to this. 20 years from now, we're not going to be talking about this because we're all going to age in with the use of technology. I mean, and then there's other issues. You have a visual impairment, you're not using technology. You have advanced arthritis, you're not using technology. So, your point is very well taken. I mean, we're engaging caregivers, friends, neighbors, and others, but the bottom line is there are going to be people that will never be connected, and we have to have alternatives, old school ways to, interact with them, and that's most likely going to be face-to-face or telephone.
Hey, Greg, I don't know if this is a pretty big nut, but are you guys at all working with DOH and the elderly and doctors? Obviously, the elderly are thinking of Candies. I mean, we can certainly try to think of stuff that law enforcement, but they're only there every once in a while. The elderly are obviously always, often I should say, utilizing medical services. And I don't know if that's a separate resource that has been tapped into.
Yeah, it's kind of the same issue, right? Whether it be, COVID-related things, vaccination-related things, everything is online. And for our population, younger people with disabilities, individuals that don't have access, it's a problem. So it's not just for this particular population. We're moving into telehealth. Again, same issues, right? Tech is a great solution. It's not the solution, but we've put a lot of our eggs in the tech basket. And frankly, a lot of people aren't going to be able to access or going to need assistance in doing that. We have, staff that go around with mobile hotspots and are able to assist with some of those things, again, if they have the broadband access, which many communities don't. I always think of the Verizon map where they show what the great coverage they have across the United States. You look at New York, it looks like Wyoming. It really does. Up in the North Country, outside here, even going up in the Thatcher Park area, there's a lot of areas in New York that don't have internet coverage. And that's kind of shocking when you think about New York, but it is what it is. And hopefully that'll be solved with some of the infrastructure investments. Obviously what everybody learned during COVID and how important the technology and broadband access is, from students all the way to, the rollout of telehealth, broadly defined.
Candy, I definitely understand your concern. It is a big one, as Greg indicated. I don't know if OVS, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Kathy, but do you do anything with, do any of your service providers do anything on, teaching those that in the community that they're working with about internet? Do you know?
I was actually going to comment, Joanna, because Candy, we find the same issues, the same frustrations at OVS. We push the portal as the main way to file claims. We do keep the elderly ones in mind, and that's why we will always continue to accept paper claims. And I work very closely with a lot of the elderly ones because, for this very same reason, and a lot of things they try to get accomplished. They say it's always push a number, push this number, push that number. It's, a robot voice. So it's amazing how thrilled they are. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to a real person that you called me. So as far as the victim assistance programs, they're doing what they can at this point, and getting these elderly ones who don't have computers. We're doing it through the mail. We've changed some of our policies where we will accept claims initially without the authorization to get something like that later on. But I don't know about anything as far as the victim assistance program actually training elderly ones in, computer use. I think one of the things that's recommended is, do they have access to a library? Can they do it there? But then you have, it's a public computer, and that can be an issue too for confidentiality reasons. So again, we have a very frustrating issue with all of this, but we take everything into consideration and we'll go over and above trying to get these victims able to get their claim in for compensation. I don't know if that answered your question, Joanna. Or...
No, I think it did. I know that Blake in your office has been doing a ton of different training and webinars online, in person over the years. I just didn't know if that was a topic. It is fairly narrow. I mean, I think it's a very important point like that Candy's raising. It is fairly narrow, and I know that you guys deal with all victim assistance, not just, elderly or domestic violence. You deal with any types of victimization. So I just didn't know if in the course of that Blake had come across any sort of thinking or work around that issue regarding accessing or utilizing the internet in any fashion.
Not at this point, no.
Yeah, it was pretty okay. All right, thank you. We'll keep thinking, as Greg said, hopefully some of the access issues will get better. And we'll think if there's an avenue, I'll keep thinking about it, Candy, for law enforcement to share that information. Trying to, I worry a little bit about their ability to educate in the time in their short call. You know what I mean? When they get out there, I think if we can just refer them to adult protective or the other types of things, then hopefully those types of service providers might be better equipped to, do the next step regarding training. Not try to pass it off. I just, as well as I, the amount of time an officer's at a scene is pretty quick. So just trying to think about it from that perspective too.
Envisioned was, and it'll show you how old I am, when we had the youth corps back in the 60s, and the police agencies might even have a group of kids. I mean, obviously I'm concerned about confidentiality also, but that a police agency could have a small youth corps that's willing to go in and help these people, and it builds that camaraderie with the police agency as well as the elderly. But
yep,
for another day.
Actually, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about the sheriff who was on our committee who has retired. Oh boy, why am I blanking on his name? He did a lot of work with his community in the elder abuse. Guys, because of the
Sheriff Pavro, I think, Johanna.
Thank you. Yes.
Right. Yep.
I know he had done a lot of initiatives like that, Candy, where he was working with the community elderly and trying to partner. And I think we actually at one point had him present on how he worked, with his community as a good model of partnership there. So, okay. Does anybody else on the committee want to report out on anything they're working on? Maybe what I'll do is I'll go around to make it easier. Shelley, is there anything else that you want to talk about or raise that you're working on that you want to make sure the rest of the committee knows about?
Not necessarily related to law enforcement work, but I just wanted to share that the federal government has issued a formula grant for adult protective services, which they've never done before. And New York State will be receiving over $5 million specifically for adult protective services work as it relates to COVID relief funding. So we're kind of excited about that. We will be issuing a local commissioner's memorandum as soon as the allocations that we have created are approved by Division of Budget. And we'll be sending that out for local districts to select the types of strategies that they will be funding with this money. So we're excited about that.
That's great. Are there a list of, I know sometimes when we do grants or offerings that there's a list of things that they need to try to address with the money that they're getting. Is there a particular area of focus that you're asking these adult protective service or the local social service to work on?
So they get to choose kind of from a menu of things, whether it's, purchasing equipment, if it's, temporary staffing or hazard pay, if it's public awareness campaigns. There's kind of a list that the federal government kind of carved out. We don't have all of the reporting instructions presented back from ACL yet, but I do know that one of the primary things that they will be looking for is the impact that these strategies had on folks over the age of 60.
That's great, Shelley. That's really exciting. Great to see that we got that those additional funds are going to be available. And I think as that continues to share with this group, you know, what people are doing with those additional funds so that we can make sure we educate law enforcement and others that we in our communities on what's available. That's a really exciting initiative.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing.
No problem.
Okay. Kathy, is there anything else from OVS that you'd like to share? I see still Kathy. Okay. I'm going to go on. I'm not sure if you're muted or not, Kathy, but Deputy Inspector Perez, I didn't know if there's anything that you guys are working on that you wanted to share with the group.
Well, you guys can call me Kenny. You don't have to. So actually, just circling back on some things that my office did in the last few months, working with Department of Aging. Back in October, we did this. We utilized the Explorers a lot, right? The age 14 through 20, the law enforcement Explorers, and we did a program where we had 700 kids went with a shopping list at like a green market, and we went to 700 different apartments. We let the elderly fill out what their shopping list would be, and we went shopping for them and delivered them their groceries. Right? So we try to do a lot of outreach with the elderly community. But the last thing that we did was something called walks, where we had the Explorers. They led walks around the city, and while they were doing that, they were teaching the elderly about not teaching, but just reminding them of good traffic safety and how and when they could cross the street and what they should be on the lookout for, and just kind of just guiding them to have a safe trip around the city. So it's just like ideas that we try to do out of this office is a lot of just outreach and involving them and not forgetting about them and just getting them out of their COVID situation. And so it's just something the youth kind of like really enjoy being involved in doing that. So that's definitely an avenue that I like to pursue is marrying those two together. But that's really it. That's really all I have to share. And
Yeah, that's a great initiative and what a great way to incorporate the youth with the elderly. And it sort of jumps on what Candy was talking about as some of these youth courts and things like that, which I know in my community we have those, thinking about ways in which to partner them. That's great. That's a really exciting. Okay, so let me see. Julie, is there anything that you want to share with the group? I think you might still be on mute, at least on my end, Julie. On my end, you're still on mute. Allie, would you be able to maybe assist and unmute Julie? I don't know if it's on her end or.
Yep, I sent her an unmute request. See if she got it.
All right.
That didn't work.
I think while you're working on that with Julie, I'm going to go to the next person and hopefully then I'm going to come back to you, Julie, okay? David, is there anything that you would like to share with the group from OTDA?
Nothing specific at this time, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problems. Candy, anything else from you?
Just been as busy as can be.
All right. Were you able to get Julie back on? Let's see.
There we go. I sent her a message that we're trying to help her unmute.
Okay. All right. Let me try. Greg, I know we've talked a lot and you've talked a lot, throughout this about the various, but is there anything else from the SOFA initiatives that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, and I appreciate what Kenny said and the partnership with DIFTA. I think those types of activities have been happening all over the state since last March. I mean, the community has really rallied around trying to reach out, make visits to older adults, especially those who are isolated. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, there's a couple of things. State budget for us this year was really great. So the funding and the partnerships for all of our elder abuse, work continues. OVS has been a spectacular partner. I'll ask Jennifer to, briefly talk about some of the enhanced opportunities we have with OVS. But we also have the American Rescue Plan is going to be very good for our agency. It's one of those where we don't have to apply for FEMA. I get a direct infusion of cash. There's about $460 million in there. We get about 6.5% of that. In all total, we'll get another $85 million. But what they specifically did, and I used to do this when I worked in the legislature, is you carve out priority areas, even though you were allowed to do them prior to. And some of the areas that they're focusing on are obviously social isolation. People who are isolated are at much more risk of the types of crimes we're talking about. So I think that'll be helpful. As well as, severely expanded opportunities for service provision, purchasing of tech equipment, training, things of that nature. So I think that there's other ways to, be out in the community to try to identify and help people, with some of the work that we're all talking about. But Jennifer, can you talk about, some of the additional opportunities we've been recently afforded in our OVS partnership?
Sure. Thank you, Greg. So this year, OVS reached out to state agency partners, including NYSOFA, who already are operating different initiatives because they had some funding available. And NYSOFA was fortunate to be awarded additional funding. We're very excited about it. It is one-time short-term funding for things that can be really for kind of single use. So we're looking at developing a series of videos related to the elder abuse enhanced multidisciplinary teams, specific to the different professional disciplines, to really help clarify their role relative to the team, and that it really doesn't change their professional relationship, of course, with their work, but rather why the participation on a team may be of value. And we also are looking at developing an enhanced, improved website for use by those professionals, as well as in general for the EMDTs, and some other innovations which we're still in conversation about. So we're really excited about that opportunity, very appreciative of OVS offering that to us, and we're about to launch those editions.
That's great. If we can be of any assistance in the the law enforcement discipline training portion of it, please let us know, and we'll be happy to help out with that.
Thank you. I think that might be a great connection, so I'll bring that back, and we'll reach out. It likely will be pretty soon, so thank you so much for that offer.
Yeah, no problem. Not at all. Thank you.
Johanna,
right.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, Julie. We can hear you.
My
Yay.
God. It's drama all morning with the remote access. No, just to share with you guys internally, Johanna, Ellen Kolodny, our elder abuse coordinator.
Yeah, I think so.
In-house.
Yes.
Well, she's been very active. I mean, obviously, with everything that we've been going through with not only COVID, but with the serious spike in shootings and violent crimes, and now hate crimes peppered in on top of all of that, she still has remained very active internally in our office to help educate us. We're over 1,000 people at the Bronx DA's office. So she's always periodically sending out emails reminding us about the financial scams that are out there on elderly victims. She's always reminding us of opportunities where there are like webinars or presentations or things like that. But that's all internal. As far as us engaging with the community, obviously that has been severely compromised due to everything that's going on. I know that she does one-on-one consultations, and she helps educate in that manner. Hopefully, going forward, when things get a little bit better, we'll be probably better positioned to do more outreach outside of our office. But Ellen Kalani, if you guys have been serving on this committee for a while, you should know her name. Deputy Inspector Perez, you really should know Ellen Kalani. She is fantastic. She's a wealth of information. She's a tremendous resource, and she's a very strong advocate in this area.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing the information. Gary, I wonder if there's anything else you wanted to share with the group.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a complaint that our phones have been ringing off the hook about, and it was mentioned earlier, which is false unemployment claims. I think we're now past the 500,000 mark in New York State, which is a staggering number. The good news is that very, very few of these false claims are getting paid out. The bad news, it means that all these people who are getting a letter from DOL about an unemployment claim they never filed have to now go into identity theft prevention overdrive because it means their social security number was compromised. So we've been fine-tuning our message about telling people what to do, contact Department of Labor, contact your employer, and the things you need to do when you know your social security number has been compromised.
Thanks, Gary, for letting us know that. That's good information that hopefully we can share some more about that maybe on the webinar to the broader community as to what the next steps are when you experience that. So thank you. All right, I think, did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. All right. So our next steps and takeaways are we'll work together on the social media, and Shelley and Greg, if you can, and Jennifer, if you guys can send whatever you have on that, and we can work together to share that with the rest of the group. If we need to pull in our PIO and communication people, I think when we send it out, we'll try to query you as to whether or not you want to have a meeting with your PIO and communication people. I know some people may need that, and other people may just need the information to be able to share it. So we can do that one. Then the next is pulling together those that we'd like to have on the panel for a webinar and coming up with a date, time, and agenda. And then we can work to share some of what we're thinking of doing with the webinar as far as an outline and things like that with the rest of this group so that you can share areas we might have missed, resources we may have done. So those are the big takeaways that I see. Did I miss anything, anybody? No? Okay. Well, thank you all again for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to going the next step with this and continuing to raise awareness with law enforcement in the community. Candy, did you have something that you wanted to raise? Oops, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I have a question in regard to the toolkit information that was sent out.
Yes.
Is there anything that prevents us from using some of that material in our media contact, such as I was looking at the financial exploitation by the Elder Justice Initiative, and the second page of that has like this wonderful types of exploitation, warning signs, and protect your financial exploitation. Is that copywritten in any way, or can we use that information?
We'll double check. We usually do look for things like that. And if they're public access and public use already, if we're linking to something that's publicly, we're usually okay. But thanks for raising the issue, and we'll double check the toolkit for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, because I'm noticing that the front page of it indicates licensed material. And I just want to make sure that we're on the good. Okay.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And we'll have to double check. A lot of our material is actually copywritten, but we allow it to be used for non-commercial public education in our copyrights for materials that we develop. So we'll just double check and make sure we have the same ability to share this in the same way. Thanks for raising it. Okay. All right. Anything else we've forgotten before we close this out? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining, and thanks for sharing all of your expertise. Have a great day, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Be safe.
Take care.
Thank you.